All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving headfirst into some serious NFL draft drama.
Oh, yeah.
And you know it's going to be good when we're talking about Shedeur Sanders.
It's already heated.
He's Colorado's star quarterback, right?
Huh?
And he's making headlines left and right, even before he even steps foot on that field at the Combine.
Before he even gets there.
We've been digging through articles, analyzing his decision to not throw the Combine.
Yeah.
Comparisons to other players in his position, even some pretty spicy fan forum discussions.
Oh, I know. I saw some of those.
So our mission today, if you choose to accept it,
I'm in.
is to figure out, why is this causing such a stir? Is it justified, this whole thing? And what could it mean for Sanders' future in the NFL?
Well, I think what's really gotten everyone talking is how everyone is focusing on his, pre-draft strategy almost as much as his on-field performance,
It's like the pregame show is already more dramatic than the actual game.
Yeah, exactly. And it all starts with this, opting out of the throwing drills at the Combine.
Right.
But he's going to showcase those skills at his pro day instead.
Okay, so for anyone who hasn't been, glued to their phone, refreshing Twitter every 5 seconds,
Guilty.
Sanders is choosing to skip the throwing drills at the NFL Combine.
Right.
And instead he's going to show off his arm at his pro day.
Yeah.
Which on the surface sounds simple enough, right? You'd think so?
You'd think so.
But, hoo boy, the reaction from some of these analysts... Intense. Is putting it mildly.
Yeah.
We're talking accusations of arrogance.
Like he thinks he's too good for this.
Oh, yeah. Saying it's a huge red flag for NFL teams.
A major red flag.
Some are acting like he, broke some cardinal rule of the draft process.
It's interesting because, you have to remember what the Combine actually is. It's been for decades, this ultimate proving ground, right?
Right.
Especially for quarterbacks. We're trying to impress all 32 teams all at once.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the idea that you'd skip a core part of that, it's definitely going to ruffle some feathers.
It's like you show up to a potluck empty-handed.
Oh, yeah.
When everyone else brought their A game.
And you were supposed to bring dessert.
Right.
Yeah.
People are going to notice. People are going to talk.
It can be awkward.
It's going to be awkward.
Yeah.
But here's what I find really interesting.
What's that?
Cast your mind back to last year, if you will.
Okay.
Caleb Williams, who ended up being the #1 draft pick, did the exact same thing.
That's right.
Skipped the throwing drills at the Combine.
Yep.
Did we hear this level of outrage back then?
I don't really remember it being such a huge deal.
I don't remember it at all.
It wasn't.
It's like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it seems like there's a bit of a, maybe a double standard going on here.
A little bit.
A little bit, maybe more than a little bit, because a lot of the sources we've looked at, they're really suggesting that it's more than just a coincidence.
Right.
I mean, one article in Sports Illustrated even straight up calls out the quote-unquote harsh criticism that is directed at Sanders.
Oh, yeah, I saw that one.
Which seems so much more amplified than the response to Williams doing the exact same thing.
It's not even like a similar amount. It's like...
It's night and day.
It's way more.
Yeah, and it's not just the amount of criticism. It's the tone.
A vibe.
The vibe of it feels different.
It feels different, yeah.
Yeah, some commentators are even hinting at something more. There's almost a coded language being used against Sanders.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, words like unlikable being thrown around, which is, a loaded term.
Especially given, his background.
Yeah, I guess.
If you don't fit a certain mold, the judgment is just way more intense.
It's like they're looking for something to criticize.
Right. Have you ever noticed that, in other areas of life, too?
Oh, absolutely.
Someone's doing something unconventional.
Yeah.
But because they don't, fit the expected image, people just come down on them way harder.
It's like they're threatening the status quo.
Right.
Yeah, and that triggers a reaction.
Makes you wonder, is Sanders just being cocky, like some of these fans are saying?
Mm-hmm.
Is he letting his dad's fame, get to his head a little bit?
Well, I mean...
Because I've seen some brutal comments in these fan forums we looked at.
Yeah, there are always going to be those, knee-jerk reactions.
Oh, for sure.
Especially in the world of, die-hard sports fans.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But I think when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, there's... some analyses are suggesting that there's a much more calculated strategy at play here.
Really?
Yeah. One article even called it a masterclass in draft strategy.
Oh, wow.
Which I know might sound extreme, but it's an interesting take.
Masterclass. I mean, Break it down for me here.
Right, because right now it just looks like he's skipping out on homework.
Yeah, it does.
Right. Yeah, but think about the potential advantages that this move actually gives him.
Okay.
So at the combine, he can actually focus on the team interviews.
Right.
You know, getting that dedicated FaceTime with the coaches and the GMs.
Right. One-on-one time.
Yeah. And then at his pro day, he's in complete control.
Oh, okay.
He's working with receivers that he's already got that rapport with, right?
Uh-huh.
They're running routes that highlight his strengths.
Okay.
He can even control things like, you know, the environment, the weather, all of that.
Interesting.
To showcase his skills in the absolute best possible light.
So instead of avoiding the spotlight, he's just choosing when and where to shine brightest.
Exactly. It's a power move.
Okay, now that's starting to sound a little more savvy than cocky.
Right. And let's not forget, I mean, this is Deion Sanders' son.
Oh, right.
This is a man who knows the NFL inside and out.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's not crazy to think that he's advising Shedeur,
Right.
you know, using his own experience to kind of navigate this whole process strategically.
It's like having, like, the ultimate cheat code for the draft.
Right.
Like, your dad's a legend.
Yeah.
Who's been there, done that.
Exactly.
Can help you, avoid all the pitfalls.
The ultimate insider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got this potential strategic decision that some people are seeing as arrogance.
Right.
We've got these double standards popping up.
Uh-huh.
And we can't forget the undeniable influence of, like, a legendary father.
It's a lot to unpack.
Where does all of this leave Shedeur Sanders, though? Like, really?
That's the big question.
I mean, what does this actually mean for his draft prospects? Are we reading too much into this, or is this like a sign of something bigger happening in the NFL?
Oh, that's where things get really interesting.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because what if this whole situation is really just a symptom of a much larger shift that's happening within the NFL itself?
All right, tell me more.
What if, whether he intended to or not, Shedeur Sanders is actually challenging the old ways of doing things in the draft?
Ooh, challenging the system.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more about this shifting landscape you're talking about.
Well, you know, sometimes we get so caught up in the combine hype,
Right.
and where a player gets drafted, that we kind of forget about what really matters in the long run.
A long game.
Right, their actual career.
Yeah.
The NFL is changing. You know, players are becoming way more aware of how things like, you know, team culture,
Right.
coaching styles,
Yeah.
development opportunities, all of that,
Yeah.
those can impact their careers.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than where they initially get drafted.
Right. It's not just about being, like, #1 pick if you end up on a team where you're, like, miserable.
Exactly. It's like picking a college, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about the name or the ranking. It's
Yeah.
about finding the right fit.
Yeah, the environment.
Where you can actually grow.
Yeah, where you can thrive.
And we're seeing agents like advising their clients to be more selective.
Oh, interesting.
You know, prioritize finding that right fit
Yeah.
over just chasing the biggest contract or the highest draft pick.
Right, because you can have all the money in the world, but if you're not happy, it
Exactly.
doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and Sanders' approach, even if it's unintentional, it seems to align with that.
Right, he's like, I want to be where I'm valued.
Yeah, where he can succeed.
Okay, but let's play devil's advocate for a sec.
Okay.
What about the argument that, skipping the combine actually hurts his chances?
Mm-hmm.
That NFL teams need to see him, like, throw under pressure
Right.
against top-tier competition.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
Right.
But I think looking back at NFL history
Okay.
can kind of give us some perspective here.
Give me some examples.
We found some pretty compelling examples
Okay.
of players who either skipped the combine completely
Oh.
or weren't even invited.
Oh.
And they still went on to have like crazy successful careers.
Okay, you gotta give me some names here.
Okay, think about Lamar Jackson.
Okay, yeah, MVP.
Right. Won an MVP.
Yeah.
Didn't even run the 40-yard dash at the combine.
What?
Doug Baldwin, Super Bowl champ,
Yeah.
wasn't invited to the combine.
Wow.
Julian Edelman, another Super Bowl winner,
Yeah.
no combine invite.
Oh my God.
And one of the greatest tight ends of all time, Antonio Gates,
Okay.
never even set foot on that field at the combine.
So you're telling me the combine isn't the end all be all?
It's definitely a piece of the puzzle,
Right.
a data point
Yeah.
teams consider,
Hmm.
but it's not the whole picture.
Yeah.
I mean, they have game film, they have scouting reports.
Where they've been watching these guys for years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They've seen these players perform throughout their college careers.
So it's just one like performance out of, years of playing.
Right. The combine can either like reinforce or challenge those assessments.
Yeah.
But it's not the only factor they're looking at.
So Shedeur Sanders' decision to not throw
Yeah.
isn't like happening in a vacuum.
It's all connected.
It's part of this like bigger trend.
Right. Players are redefining how they approach the draft.
Taking control of their own like narrative.
Exactly. They're taking ownership.
Yeah.
And here's what I think is really interesting.
What?
Sanders' decision, whether he meant to do this or not,
Uh-huh.
is forcing the NFL to kind of re-examine its own processes.
Ooh, okay.
Is the combine losing some of its relevance?
Interesting.
Are teams having to adapt to this new generation of players
Right.
who are approaching the draft with this whole different mindset?
So regardless of where Sanders actually gets drafted,
Yeah.
he's already like started a conversation.
He's shaking things up.
That's bigger than just him.
It's about the future of the draft,
Hmm.
how players navigate this transition from college to the pros.
It's like he's a disruptor,
He's-
whether he meant to be or not.
Yeah, and that's what makes this whole thing so compelling.
Right.
It's not just about one player's decision.
Yeah.
It could be a turning point
Right.
for the whole league.
It's kind of wild, right? We started this whole deep dive looking at those like initial hot takes. you know, people saying Sanders was arrogant and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're talking about masterminds and turning points for the NFL.
I know, it's pretty amazing.
Like it's crazy how much depth there is to this whole Shedeur Sanders situation.
What I think is really interesting is how this has made us all kind of question our own assumptions.
Oh yeah.
Not just about Sanders himself,
Right.
but about like how we evaluate talent in general.
Sure.
Are we too quick to judge based on like appearances or whether someone follows the like traditional path?
Right, because that's kind of what we were talking about with the whole combine thing.
Exactly.
Like, is that the only way to measure success?
Yeah. Right. And do we get so focused on the immediate results
Yeah.
that we miss the bigger picture, the long game?
It's like that saying, like, don't judge a book by its cover, right?
Exactly.
You might be missing out on, like, an amazing story
Mhm.
or an incredible talent because you're too focused on the superficial stuff.
Absolutely. And that's what I really want to leave everyone with today.
They're listening.
Regardless of what happens with Shedeur Sanders in this draft,
Right.
he's already started a debate
Yeah.
that goes way beyond just sports.
About what really matters.
It's about understanding that there are many paths to success.
Not just one way to do things.
Right.
Yeah.
That challenging the status quo
Mm-hmm.
can actually lead to positive change.
You can push things forward.
And that sometimes, like, the most captivating stories
Yeah.
are the ones that defy our expectations.
Right. The ones that don't fit the mold.
Exactly.
I like that.
So think about it. What does all of this tell us
Yeah.
about how we evaluate talent? Not just in sports,
Mm-hmm.
but in business, in our personal lives.
Mhm.
Are we open to those who forge their own path?
Right. Even if it looks a little different.
Even if it looks different than what we're used to.
Yeah. I think that's a really important question for everyone to consider.
And we want to hear your thoughts on this too.
Yeah.
Join
Yeah.
the conversation online. You can use #DeepDiveNFLDraft.
Love a good hashtag.
Let's keep this conversation going.
Yeah.
Because who knows, maybe Shedeur Sanders is just the first chapter
Oh, I like that.
in a much bigger story about the evolution of the NFL
Mm-hmm.
and how we define talent.
Ooh, in the years to come.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive.
Yeah, I'm ready for a nap
Me too.
after all of that.
So much to think about.
Lots to ponder.
But we want to thank you all for tuning in
Yes. Thank
and
you.
joining us for another episode
Till next time.
of The Deep Dive.